Welcome to Fox Talks Business Podcast with your host, Tanya Fox. Tanya has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, owning retail, service, and franchise. She holds no punches and is never afraid to talk about the nitty-gritty. Together, you'll explore the good, the bad, and the motivational of business life, turning obstacles into opportunities and failures into successes. So grab your favorite drink and let's have some fun. Here's your host, speaker, crafter, and collaborator, Tanya Fox.
So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Marc. I'm so excited to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I'm really excited because you have such an incredible journey so far and I can say this because I'm a lot older than you, in your short life. Tell us a little bit about what your journey has been like here, because you actually started sort of becoming an entrepreneur at only 11 years old. So can you tell us a little bit about that, your backstory?
Sure. So I'm a Red Sox fan and I'm in New York. So that's a really bad mix if you're trying to find other fans. So my way of finding other Red Sox fans was to start a blog about the Boston Red Sox. Now, I don't blog about them anymore. I'm just an avid fan at this point, not creating content around them. But entrance into blogging allowed me to see the potential for creating content, driving traffic to being able to make money from it. So it really just started from there's no one in my area who's a Red Sox fan. Let me find people who are. And I really feel like that's what we could do with our content, really find people who we can serve and really empower in the right way. So that's certainly how I got started. It's evolved into over 20 books, even more training courses and virtual summits. So, but it all started with that blog about the Red Sox.
And you also have a radio show as well that now you're doing. Tell us a little bit about that.
So Breakthrough Success Radio, every single Monday, 7 a.m. Eastern, goes all across the U.S. So each week we interview a bunch of really awesome people who talk about how essentially they've achieved their breakthroughs in different ways that you can win at business and life. The radio show is new. It's based off the Breakthrough Success podcast, which has been around for almost 3 years right now.
That's so exciting. And you actually have sort of when you were in high school, you were actually teaching at college. So you kind of tell us a little bit about that, because that's a huge thing that most people can't do. But what was that like? How did that sort of come to be?
So my brother and I would like to empower as many youth as possible. So we did a summer program, Business Whiz Kids. And the idea was to bring in a bunch of kids who wanted to learn about business, wanted to learn how to grow, and we taught them the program. So, it was really incredible, that program, because it allowed us to, you feel like you're really having an impact on future generations when you teach that kind of a program and the impact that you have on people. So it was during that summer program where we were really able to see the impact we were creating right then and there, but that also gives you the idea of, hey, I could do something much bigger in the future and impact far more people.
And tell us a little bit about some of the books that you wrote and what that process was like for you. Because now, you've written so many that now it's, it's just a normal thing. But your very first book, tell us about that and what made you decide that you wanted to write a book and what it was about.
So the first book I wrote that I published on Amazon was called Honest Ways to Make Money Online, with this just super sketchy title with a super sketchy cover because it's just a bunch of dollar bills floating all over the place. So that was the first book. I always wanted to write a book. I always wanted the idea of holding a paperback of my book. I've wanted that, I believe, since I was 4. So I decided, you know what, why do I have to wait? Amazon's right in front of me. Let's just do it. So that's why I decided to write the first book. That led into the second book. Now, not all of these books, I'll admit, not all of them are good, especially as you write more, you get better. So the books behind me, those are I'd be willing to hand those things to anyone. But the first 1, 2, or 3 books, those just learning experiences that really set you up for the big one.
And I think too that it's like anything else in entrepreneurship, right? You always look back at the first things you did and think, oh, like what was I thinking? But as time goes on, like you said, I mean, you just develop different ways to do it. So tell us a little bit about your latest book. What can people expect out of it?
So my latest book, Breakthrough Success, which comes out in on July 17th, that book is about how do we achieve our big goals, how do we achieve our big breakthroughs, and it's based on what I've learned from interviewing over 350 people from the show, not including people who I've interviewed for virtual summits. So for people looking to win at business and life, again, two of the big themes at Breakthrough Success, that book is going to help them do that.
And tell us a little bit about the summit that you have, which is in June this year, right? I think it's coming up almost right away. So tell us a little bit about that, because I love the premise behind it.
So the Advanced Affiliate Marketing Summit, that one's the one we're talking about for June. I love virtual summits. This is actually my 6th one that I've done. I have 4 summits right now that are evergreen, still collecting leads to this day. Because a lot of the stuff in these virtual summits, it is useful to this day. It's just that most people at the end of the summit, they have no idea what to do with all this sitting content. So I love the idea of virtual summits. You basically interview people much like this. The only difference is having that whole infrastructure, having the opt-in page, leading people to buy the all access pass. This is something that I help clients with. But having all of these interviews where you just normally put on a podcast and being able to make money through the all access pass, through coaching and others you could promote during the summit. And even one thing I recently learned and will be applying by the end of the month, you can take existing podcast interviews and turn that into a virtual summit.
Which is exciting because I travel a lot to a lot of different conferences, but I love the virtual summits because I can almost like pile 2 conferences on one. So while I'm traveling, I'm listening to my virtual summit and then actually attending an in-person one. And so what do you find are the benefits, the biggest benefit for you for the virtual summit?
I think hands down, it has to be the ability to grow your audience right away, have a product already, and being able to make money. So growing your audience, you've got 20 to 50 people, maybe even more than that promoting. If you make it evergreen, which is what I've done for some of mine, you could keep bringing people on, like with the podcast, but instead of promoting the link to the latest episode, they're promoting your summit opt-in page, which is optimized to make money at this point. So that's the traffic generation point, the money, and the product. You have an all access pass. You just interview people. That is literally now a product. So you have that set up. And then these people are super engaged where normally I'd be really happy on YouTube if I saw someone watch like 40% of my video, if that was like an average. It's not surprising at all. Like it's common for my standpoint to see like 80% retention rate for virtual summit sessions, even more than that, because these are hyper engaged in the moment people who are really engaged with the content you're providing at that moment.
So I'm glad you mentioned your YouTube channel because I was listening to you on a few different interviews. And one of the things you talked about is how you really love to do collaborations. And I'm a huge fan of collaborations. I've used them almost throughout my whole business career. And it started out for me just because I didn't have money to pay for stuff. And I wasn't prepared to go into a street corner to get the money. So I needed to find something else. But now I use it as, it's almost like it's a business tool that I use all of the time. So tell me a little bit about how you got into collaborations with YouTube and what the benefits are that you've seen, and maybe even some of the struggles in trying to create longer term collaborations.
So, collaborations, they're huge. Just like an interview like this, where both of us are going to share this interview with both of our audiences, that's more people coming to both of our platforms. You do that hundreds of times, you're going to have a big platform pretty soon. So there's a lot of benefit in the amount of content creation. There's also the accountability. It's one thing to say I want to create a video solo at 1:30. It's another thing to say I have to be here for this interview at 1:30. People blowing someone else off is like a really bad thing. But when it comes to like us, it's like, oh, let's just push that like 30 minutes later. You can't do that for a collaboration. So you definitely crank out more content. You have the marketing piece. Sometimes like during a collaboration, you get a lot of new ideas, like for virtual summits. Joseph Warren, we'll just shout him out really quick. He was the guy who gave me the idea of doing the virtual summit out of past podcast episodes. We were both brainstorming on the post recording. So you get a lot of ideas. During some of the interviews, like I've become a client of someone because I interviewed them on my show. So there's a lot of business you can get. There's just so many benefits to collaboration that range from getting more traffic to making more money.
And I think that's the key to it. Like, you know, it's a win-win for both parties, but I find that you learn so much through it. And it's more fun to bring people up with you in your success than to just go at it, you know, by yourself. So you've been obviously a big advocate for teen entrepreneurs and helping them sort of come up in the business. What was one of your favorite ones that you were able to work on?
I would say, I mean, there's so many who we've been able to help. So, I mean, just like each one of them who are able to help, it's just really incredible the kind of impact you have. Some people, like you see it within 4 days right away. That's the length of our program. But and other people, like, you know that it's going to impact them later because this is the stuff we teach, my brother and I, in our Business Whiz Kids. It's not stuff that people normally hear. It's essential stuff that we know is important, but it's not stuff that's getting hammered in again and again and again, like different ways to boost confidence, different ways to promote yourself, which maybe these things get covered a little bit, but it's not like there's a daily reminder to, you know, like self-development and all these different things. So I would just say, like, everyone who we impact is, we value all of those chances we get.
And so with, are you still doing a blog now? I know you're not doing the Red Sox ones, but where can people come to find you for all of your content?
So marcguberti.com, that is my current blog. I do content marketing there. I do virtual summit stuff there. I have a bunch of evergreen summits as well. Content marketing success summit.com. That's the summit that most of the people know me for, but I've done Profitable Podcasting Summit, Wealthy Author Summit, and a few others as well. So those are just a few places where people can find my blog, but also some of the interviews I've done for summits.
And you talk a lot about content marketing, and you're kind of like becoming quite the guru with it. So tell us a little bit about what is content marketing and why is it so important, especially in this day and age?
Content marketing is the act of taking content and putting in the work so that it reaches more people. So that can mean like Twitter, Facebook, all your favorite social networks. It can mean outreach to people. It can mean mentioning people inside of your article or video and saying, hey, I mentioned you. I thought you'd be interested in seeing this or sharing it. So content marketing takes on a lot of forms. And it's really important because that's the way that you build your audience. I feel like too many people get stuck up on the creation, and creating's fun. You create, and people love being in that creative mindset, but it's the marketing that allows you to make the money. So I actually came out with a blog post recently, and it was pretty much about how most people have content marketing backwards because everyone thinks about creation. Like content marketing, that's the hot topic. Content creation is not the hot topic. It is the thing we want to do, but it is the marketing that makes the business. So the way that we should be approaching this is first think about how we're going to make money. Like what is the product or service or thing that we want to promote, and then create content around that thing. And before you even create content, have a marketing plan. So if this piece of content gets published, know immediately what you are supposed to do to be promoting that content. And I feel like if you think of content marketing in that sense where, okay, this is how I'm going to make money. This is the content I have to create that matches this. And I have this marketing plan before any of that starts, detailing how to promote the content, instead of people saying, okay, I'll create content, then I'll think about marketing later, and then I'll think about making money. So I feel like that's how most people have it backwards. And I feel like it is a very key topic.
And then it causes a lot of struggle too, I guess, or a lot more time when they do it the other way around.
Yeah, the creating only, yeah.
So what's the biggest tip that you can give our listeners if there are, a lot of our listeners are already in business, some have been in business for quite a while, but they do tend to kind of get sort of stuck in what they're doing. So to sort of get themselves sort of out of that normal groove of doing it, what's one tip that you can give them to sort of up their game in content marketing?
I would say gradually add new marketing channels, test them and see what's really working well for you. So one of the things that I recently am going all in on is YouTube, because I've always wanted to, I've done video, I've seen the power of it in the past, but I've never really been as focused on it as I am now. So just being able to explore different platforms, it's better if you go like all in on a few and then gradually add a few more that you go all in on, instead of like spreading out too much. Because if you spread yourself out too much, you get overwhelmed. And then just setting up systems that make the work easier and quicker for you to do, even delegating to save even more time. But I feel like the reason people feel stuck or they hit a block is because of time. They feel like they don't have enough of it. And we all have the same amount of time in the day. So it's not like we don't have enough time, so we're not utilizing it as well as we could. So if you feel like you're stuck, I would look at how you're using your time.
And I think too, just like you said, just getting out there and trying different platforms, because you never know. I'm in the same boat with you with YouTube. It was actually my son who was like, "What, you need to be on YouTube?" And he's like 12, right? So he was like, "Mom, what are you doing?" And at the time I owned a craft store, and now it's quite successful for me, and it's just kind of making money on itself. But had he not have been like, "What are you doing?" I mean, I just never thought that was an avenue for me. So I think just exploring them and, and just trying new things, because you just never know where your audience is. And would you agree that, especially with social media these days, where the audience are, like where your target market is, changes just as much as social media does?
Yeah. I mean, when you hear about a big social network that's getting people are saying like, Instagram is super popular right now. That means it's super popular amongst people who are in your audience, most likely. Now, there are some people who they're in niches where it's going to forever be Twitter, forever be Facebook, forever be YouTube. But when you hear like new social network getting hot and getting popular, that is a good place to be for your niche. On the mixed side of that is you have a social network like Twitter where headlines have been, the social network is dying, or, you think about a social network like Vine, which isn't even around anymore, even though it had 200 million people at one point, I believe. But if you hear something like that about Twitter, that could be a really good opportunity to jump in, because while other people are forgetting about that network, you could be one of the people who is jumping in on a social network like Twitter, which, by the way, like those were headlines, but now it's like back to some growth. But the idea is also like you want to focus on the big boys, the ones that are doing well, but it might be worth their time to dabble a little bit in a social network that's been kicked around a little bit, like Snapchat, for instance. And then you're like it's less competition there. Like if you look at YouTube and you look at Vimeo, both are great, but Vimeo's got a lot less creator competition.
Right. That's true. It's easier sometimes to be found on these smaller ones. And like you said, to start off there, because you just never know where you're gonna all of a sudden get your 15 minutes, as they say. So you talk a lot about content and helping people to be able to find their customers. So if someone's really feeling that this is an area that they're suffering in their business, how can your company help them?
So we would just take a deeper look at the person's strategy based on how I described content marketing. So immediately we would focus on the money. How are you making money? What product or service are you selling? And what different offers do you have? Because it's good to have like a $3 book because anyone can buy that, but it's also good to have like the $500 course or the $1,000 per month service, and really higher end offers for the people who want to do that too, because 80% of your money is going to come from 20% of your clients. I've seen that through my own data. So we would first look at different ways that you want to be making money, products and services. We could do affiliate marketing too. So if you don't have a product, if you don't have a service, there's no excuse. Affiliate marketing is there for you. Then we would look at creating content around those areas. So just a bunch of different ideas that match up with your products, your services, your affiliate offers. And once we have those ideas down, that's usually up to the other person to create the content. Depending on the niche, sometimes I can step in. I almost never do though. That's their job to create the content. But before they publish the content, we have that marketing plan. So, okay, on the day it comes out, we're tweeting. We are putting it on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. We are contacting the 5 people we mentioned in that blog post or video. So, and day 3 is what we're doing. Day 7 is what we're doing, was what we're doing a month later. So having that marketing plan in play for each piece of content makes it easier to implement.
Oh, I love that. I love that strategy. And I think it's key. And I think one of the biggest that I found, because I've been doing business, I'm going to so age myself, but over 20 years, we'll just say that. And one of the biggest things that I've learned very early on in my career is that if it's something that you don't enjoy doing or something that you're just not good at, hire somebody else to do it, because it's a lot easier and a lot more beneficial in the long run. So we will make sure that we link to all of the areas that we can find you, because you're just pretty much everywhere now. I constantly see your name pop up. So I'm so excited that you took some time out of your busy schedule to sit and give such great tips like you did to all of our listeners. And you had, you've said a couple of times that one of your goals is to affect 1 billion people in your lifetime. So I want to say sincerely thank you for letting us be a part of that, and maybe being able to add some ticks onto that list, because I think you just have so much amazing knowledge and experience, and I just so loved following you and your podcast and learning about it, and being one of those 1 billion people that you affected.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It was such an honor for me to have Marc on the show. He has such a busy schedule. So I was so honored that he was able to take the time to come on and teach us a little bit more about what it is that he does. I also want you guys to all head over to the blog post, which will be on our website at foxtalksbusiness.ca, so that you can learn more about the virtual summits, the ones that he's done in the past and the ones that he has coming up. They're a great tool because as entrepreneurs, sometimes it's hard for us to get away. And the new popularity of virtual summits allows us to learn even if it's 11 o'clock at night. And so that's something that I think you guys are really going to find a lot of value. Besides the fact that he always packs it full of so much information and has amazing guests, that there's always going to be something for everybody. I also love how he talked about taking your product and reusing it to continue creating income. We often get stuck in trying to find a new idea instead of reusing those ones that worked and seeing how we can use those. And again, I'm always a huge fan of anybody who uses collaboration. And Marc's right. By collaborating, it helps for you to keep your word because you have somebody else who's counting on you. And 2 heads are always better than 1. And as Marc always says, most people think backwards when it comes to content marketing. So if you're not too sure if that's you, make sure that you follow Marc on whatever social media avenue works for you and see all of his tips to help you to start forward thinking on your content marketing. Now, we are very excited because Marc is actually leading us on our new day. So Fox Talks Business podcast is actually changing to Tuesdays, and we listen to all of your feedback. So thank you to everybody who's in the East, and we are going to be releasing it a lot earlier so that you too can listen on your drive to work, because we did hear you that that's your favorite time to listen to us. So we're going to make sure that we get that out early. And don't forget to check your phone every week. We've had so much amazing feedback, so we are going to be going weekly with our podcast starting right after this one. So thank you again to Marc and to all of my Foxy listeners. You are so amazing with everything that you do. And if you could take a second just to leave us a review and tell us what are the things that you love about the show. I love hearing from you, and I always appreciate them. So we are going to have all of the links at the bottom of this so that you can find Marc and also be able to find out some special giveaways. So stay tuned on our social media to find out what those are. And I hope that you remember to have fun, because if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?